And then up next, Kara and I are going to be going through, what's in a portfolio, what makes a portfolio good. Some of this you might already know, so feel free to stop us. It's not formal. I'm not a formal person. Kara's pretty chatty too, so we can for sure take breaks and you can ask questions and that sort of thing as we're moving forward. So that's going to be about a half an hour. So we're going to have no time whatsoever. Betsy can just wait. Betsy's going to do a Q&A with you too at the end. You can ask her questions about interviewing, really whatever. She's, again, the type of person who will hire you someday. So it's important to get to know your recruiters in the business. All right. So Kara, are you ready for this? You're on mute.
She's not ready.
She's not ready.
Ready. It's past my bedtime. I'm not ready. Just kidding. Just kidding. Yep. Let's do it.
All right, here we go. Jesse's sticking around for this, wants to see my presentation.
Woo-hoo.
Hang on, let me get myself together here. Okay.
The share screen, the pressure.
Don't look at all my things, everybody. Private stuff. All right, so Kara has taught classes and getting a job before, right, Kara, at Miami Ad School? Didn't you?
Yeah. It's been a long time. I feel like it's more one-on-one these days than actually teaching a class.
Yeah. And I actually teach a class called Getting a Job at Denver Ad School. So we've kind of compiled some of our thoughts on what we like in portfolios, what we don't like, sort of how to lay things out, templates to choose from, all that sort of stuff. Because eventually everything's going to have to live online. I know some of you brought in PDFs of work, which is fine for now, but eventually when you're sharing stuff out to recruiters, and people who will hire you, you'll want to have a proper book. So I don't want to introduce myself ever again, anytime, ever. So I'll skip it. You guys know who I am for the most part, but Kara, do you want to just do a super brief intro?
Oh my gosh. So now I have to do my own intro? What the heck? No, just kidding.
Yeah, something quick.
So yeah, I'm Kara. I have been a creative recruiter for over 20 years. It's kind of crazy. Started out at Burnett, and then I went to CPB. Now I'm an external recruiter, so other people call us headhunters. So anyhow, been getting people jobs for a long time. It's lots of fun, and especially working with this level. The beginning of your career is really exciting, so it's fun to help out tonight.
Okay. And honestly, if I were to teach a class in getting a job, it would really just be don't be an idiot. Just be a good person, be respectful, of the people you're reaching out to, their time and all that sort of stuff. But we can't teach a personality class today. So we'll just focus on the technical aspects of a book. But you guys are all fun. I loved Jesse's group. They were so interactive. Okay. So anyway, what goes into a book? Obvious stuff. You want to point out, whether or not you're an art director, you're a designer, are you a writer? Because when a portfolio lands on a recruiter's desk, that's so old school. It's going to be a floppy book. We're going to want to know right away, what am I looking at here, right, Kara? Is it a writer?
Yes.
Is it a director? So many people leave it out, so it's kind of something I thought I would call out.
Sure. Yeah. Agree.
Work. That's kind of important. So I'm showing you campaigns here today, but same goes for design, pieces. 5 to 6. 6 is a little bit much in my mind as far as fully thought out big ideas are concerned. You can even get away with 4, I think, 4 big ideas in your portfolio, as long as they're very thoughtful, and they make sense, and there's a good amount of executions within each campaign or design piece. Thumbnails count. I'm usually a fan of maybe I can find one real quick. I'm a fan of thumbnails that show a piece of the actual work inside the portfolio. It's a little bit more professional. It's how a lot of creative directors show their portfolios. But some students will do things like this, like little icons of the work or the brand. It's really up to you. I think, again, thumbnails of the actual work is a little bit more professional. That's just my take.
Sometimes people group the work too based on what it is. Like, so the category, and this is maybe as you get a little bit more advanced in your career, some people like to sort of call out, okay, these are TV, these are integrated, these are headlines. And that could make sense too. It just sort of depends on what you want to call out.
100%. And some students, and outside of that, even some students, people in the recent students will have both. They'll have design pieces, photography, samples, they'll have campaigns to show, and if you have enough of that sort of thing, I do think it's important to separate it, in the upper navigation up here. So like keep your design separate from your art direction, your photography separate from, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, is this like sort of an old school thing now, Kara? I still talk about order a lot and like how people will interact with your portfolio and kind of what to show first, what to show last. Most creative directors assume that your best piece is your first piece. So, obviously you're going to put your favorite there, but I don't know. Do you have an opinion on that still? Like, is that still a thing?
Oh, I think it matters. I would think of it like if you were putting together a music album, right? Like you want to get people hooked on the first song, and then you want everything in the middle to be keeping everyone engaged. And then by the end, like no question, this is somebody I want to talk to. I think the momentum is really important. Sometimes I think it's great to start with a couple quick hits that don't involve a whole lot of concentration, right? So like if you're a writer, I wouldn't want to put your really long copy as the first campaign because, the person who's reviewing it is just getting warmed up. And so maybe it's nice to get a couple quick, like, oh, I like how this person thinks. Oh, that's a clever line. And then maybe by the third campaign, something that would require a little more, concentration from the recruiter makes sense. And then sort of go back, give somebody a break after they've looked at something that's either really involved or has a lot of different components. So I think you got to think of it that way, sort of like you got to give people breaks in between. Like if you have something very intense, like give the reviewer a break.
Especially if it's got a lot of executions. Like I noticed that with some of my students' portfolios that they have so many good ideas that they throw everything at the campaign. And I'm like, whoa, I'm exhausted. I'm like halfway down, I'm halfway scrolled through and I've already, I'm overwhelmed. So yeah, I agree. Right. Like ease them into it. Yeah. Kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And guys, I'm going to share out this deck at the end, or Lindsay will. These all have links embedded, so you can kind of dig around too on your own volition and kind of see what we've pointed out outside of just like what's on the screen here today. Okay, here we go. About me pages. So important. A lot of recruiters will say, I look at an about me page before I even get to the work. I want to see what they're like. I want to see, their individuality, like what are they into? Like I don't want to hear more about like why they want to work in advertising because that's just boring. Like nobody wants to hear that. Spark their interests, like have them remember you for something outside of just your campaigns, Kara, do you have anything you like? Have you seen any about me pages where you're like, yes, or have you seen any where you're like, oof? I'm sure you've seen both.
Yeah, definitely seen both. It doesn't have to be overly thought out. Like I like your advice. Just keep it simple. This is fun. This isn't necessarily your resume. This is fun. I like it when somebody says something like one time, oh my gosh, this is my favorite, like had a picture of herself as like a, third grader, and she had her Austin Powers Barbie dolls. Like she had the, the Dr. Evil and then Austin Power dolls. And I was like, I don't even care what else is in this book. I'm calling her, because it was just ridiculous that she, included that photo. So yeah, again, something that like shows your personality and draws you in somehow.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, like, well, do I have to put a photo on there? And I'm like, it doesn't hurt. I mean, it's not like a modeling, shoot. It's not, you're not trying to get an acting gig, but at the same time, it's nice to put a face to the name, right, Kara? Like, especially if like you're gonna go find them on, just talk on Zoom or whatever. I don't know. I think it's nice to kind of see.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be a professional headshot by any means. Right. It can be, and at the same time, it shouldn't be a glamour shot. Like I think, like if you want it to represent a nice, just good shot of yourself that captures your personality, why not? I don't think that's what you're going to be judged on. But I've seen people put a piece of artwork there. Anything works.
Yeah, and you're a writer, not that art directors should write crap, but if you're a writer, it should be pretty eloquently write. I mean, obviously, you're going to be judged for your writing a little harsher than a designer would be. So all this matters. It all counts. But again, do not talk about why you love advertising, because we already know that you like design, you like advertising. You do not need to reiterate it. It's like a scared straight talk for everybody here today. Okay, I think we've talked that to death. Non-ads. If John is still here, he'll be very excited to see himself there. John.
Yeah, I hate it.
I had a funny picture of Ant. You should check out Ant Tull's portfolio if you had him as a reviewer. He has a really hilarious About Me page, but then I took it off because he was like, I don't want that up there. I'm like, but it's on your portfolio. And he choose. Non-ads are also super important. I don't really call them side hobbies or passion projects. I like to call them creative venting projects. Again, it can take the place of a campaign if it's really cool and smart. I'm trying to see what I have up here. Oh, this is Jason Van Kieris. He actually is here in Colorado, and he loves to cook, and he's also like a killer photographer. So he was like, I'll put the two together and I'll make this cool like Instagram account with all of my, food shots and photography shots. And it's just a fun, like, thing outside of his book that you can go check out and see what he's into. But it still highlights his craft in a way, so it should still sort of highlight what you do already, but it's not an ad, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. I love this.
Yeah, I think in this case too, it's strategic, right? Like, mm-hmm. I sometimes I'm on the fence about the extra things. I do think sometimes they can distract, and I don't know. Like I feel like if it represents your creativity and your problem solving, I think it's worth putting in there. But sometimes I think like art just for the sake of like putting something in there that you drew. I personally would rather see, if you're an art director, like that you've hand drawn one of your solutions. Exactly. Or like, Barco, those zines and stuff, like you drew all of those, right? Like, and they're a story. So that's storytelling, and it's using your artistic talent in addition to that. So I sort of like the extra things to have a purpose and to be strategic, if that's possible.
I 100%. Yeah, because sometimes it can really junk it up, and like it's just, especially if it also stops short. Like if it's something they did a few executions of, and then they're like, okay, I'm done now. It's like, well, it's not really a project. You've kind of just did some random stuff, and here it is. And yeah, I 100% agree with that. But like, for example, Eric, he was a former student of mine in Chicago. He does his own thing now. He doesn't even work in an agency, because of all this cool stuff he's been doing. And it's just an important thing, not just for recruiters to see and care about, but for you guys to stay fresh, because, once you do get in the business, like you're going to be working with clients and deadlines, and like sometimes shitty people, and you're just going to feel warped, right? Like, so you need to have like a side thing to kind of still flex your creativity in a way that a client or CD is not, controlling, I guess, if that makes sense. Okay. And that's John. I think I put John up there because he had mentioned as a bragging right that he has been mentioned in the Huffington Post, The Hill, all these things.
Was it the graffiti stuff, John, that I feel like you've dabbled in so much like interesting stuff outside of the business. You've done a lot of cool side projects.
Yeah, John
right?
should just do like a side project class. That would be fun.
I did a graffiti piece for Kara at one point too.
Yeah, you sure did. It was great. Yeah, and that's another great way to, I guess, utilize those skills. So it seems like it's a thing of the past, but like sending a thank you, but sending a customized thank you after you've had an interview with an agency like John did, it was great. It was just like, oh, wow, he put some time into this. And I feel really honored that he would do this for me, that him, his interview day meant that much to him that he would take time and make a handmade thank you note and send it in the mail. It's like, wow, that is like a lot of really awesome
I got
effort.
the job.
You did get the job.
No, I'm all for that sort of stuff. I think it's so nice to be respectful of people's time and to be excited, and tell people you're excited about the job and the talk and all that sort of stuff. Although I am a lot of students ask me like, well, do I need to have like a crazy like stunt that I got to do to like get somebody's attention? Or do I have to like send them like a something? And I'm like, well, what's that something going to be? Because if it's tacky and weird or cheesy, they're going to be like so turned off by that, So you have to be, again, like Kara was saying, strategic about the side or the side stuff. Like you have to be strategic about like, that sort of thing too. I'm sure.
Absolutely.
Oh.
It could be brilliant. And people have gotten hired based on some stunts, right? But the stunts are smart. They're like either using a new platform in a really clever way or just innovative enough where, the agency would seem sort of silly or cocky to not want to engage.
Right. We've talked that to death. If anybody, I can't see my chat box, but if anybody wants to jump in as we're going, feel free. Or maybe we'll just wait till the end. Whatever. Okay. I don't want to go through like resumes too much because they're important, but they're not the most important. I mean, the work is obviously getting you the interview and your personality and, all of that is, sealing the deal for you. But a lot of students ask me things like, well, if I haven't had like an advertising internship or design internship or something like that, I've only bartended or worked at like a retail store, like, should I mention that? And I think everybody wants to hear your story, and all of those things count. It speaks a lot to the type of person you are, if you've had some of these types of jobs. So I think mention it all. I mean, there gets to be a point where like, it shouldn't be 2 pages, you can do a quick wrap up for each job, but yeah, they do want to kind of get a timeline of events, especially if you're a little older. If you've been out of school for a while, they probably want to know, what you've been up to. And my opinion for art directors and designers is like, it just better look good. Like, I actually don't even care what's on it. Like, it's just another example of your design aesthetic, right? And like your craft, right, Kara? Like if it's laid out sloppy and it looks chunky and like from 1995, like from a template on Word, you're going to be like, eesh, like this person does not get it. Like, so it's simple. White space is nice. Like simple is best in my mind for everything, for all of this sort of stuff. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
Well, yeah, make it so you can read it. I do read them. I read the art director, copywriter resumes. I really like resumes. But yeah, it is a flag if it's poorly laid out and you're an art director. It's like, You
know what I've seen too, students do, which I like. You don't have to list like references, but I've had students list teachers they've worked with before sometimes in like a fun sort of way. And I think that's kind of clever, because everybody knows everybody in the business. So, if they've worked with somebody that they're interviewing with or whatever, I think it's helpful to add those sorts of things too, if you have extra space.
If you have people who are willing to be your reference, you absolutely can put them right there.
Yeah, and we're not going through LinkedIn at all, but LinkedIn is essentially your resume, and recruiters use that a ton to find talent and to kind of stalk you and that sort of thing. So definitely, keep up with the LinkedIn.
Do that, but don't let that be your resume. I think a lot of people think that's lazy.
Yeah.
So you should have a professional resume that you could send as a PDF if someone asked for it. I think that's important.
Yeah, I don't know why my students do that sometimes. They'll be like, do I really need it? And I'm like, it takes not that long to put together a resume. Like it shouldn't be, take the place of a LinkedIn profile, but it can be the same as a LinkedIn profile as far as the information is concerned.
The content, right.
Yeah. Do you like the way I put the Jersey Shore on there? I'm from New Jersey, if you haven't already noticed. Okay. I actually had a girl in my room that was from Jersey. Maria, shout out to Maria. She's still in here.
Woohoo. I've never been to Jersey.
You're missing out. Let me tell you.
I bet you've never been to Iowa.
My dog is from Iowa. And
there you go.
Through Iowa, but I've never actually spent time in Iowa. Got some good windmills though. I like those windmills.
Corn.
All right, so I'm gonna hurry through all this. Social, you guys are all good at this. Like this is one thing I don't think I have to teach you because this is like your age group for the most part. Like there's you should include those on your sites along with like your about me stuff. Like the person potentially interviewing is going to go through all of those things too with a fine-tooth comb, but they'll go through it. And I have some examples. Again, I'm going to share this all, so click through at your leisure as to the examples. But you can do it a few different ways. You can just have an Insta account, that's just like you with your friends or whatever, just doing things you like to do, like hiking, whatever. You can do an Insta that's like more of a themed based Insta. Let me see if I can just pull one up real quick. So it has unless we already talked about this. It's like, he's like the star of the show. It's like something cool that makes sense. It has like a vibe, she's an amazing illustrator, but she's an art director. So she wanted to highlight that in her Graham. So that's an example of that. And then also I'm noticing a lot of people are putting work on their Insta accounts now too, separate from their personal ones, which I kind of think is cool, especially if they're just like one-off projects that you wouldn't necessarily put on your website. You can kind of just add it, like if it's a typeface design or whatever. That's kind of a fun thing to toss on to your Insta portfolio.
I do think with this though, this is all extra. And so my warning is don't be doing all of this extra stuff until your book is like done and it's good and there's nothing anybody, it's sort of like back when there were hard copy books and mini books and people had to make a mini book and that was the leave behind. And there were people that made their mini book have a furry cover. They put all of this effort into what the book was actually going to look like. And then the ads inside the book were terrible. And you're like, why didn't you spend all of the time that you spent doing this extra thing on making the work better? So I just think that this stuff is great, but I wouldn't feel like it's a mandatory, and especially don't spend your time doing it if your actual book, if the content of your book is not ready, if those concepts aren't ready, don't mess with the other stuff.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. I mean, these are all extras for sure. Like I didn't want to go through like a campaign per se, because I that would be a while, like insight, concept, executions, why they made the decisions they did and all that. But that has to be fucking rock solid, tight, perfect, 100%. And that's why, like I said before, I think 4 is sometimes even better. Like if you're a student coming out of college and you're just not confident in your work, like if you have, like I'm sure you did this at your review earlier, like you had an idea, right? That was probably pretty decent, but your guides and your team helped you make it better. You added more executions or whatever, you filled it out. It became something better than it was when you started probably. And that's what you should do for everything that's in your book first. Yeah. Like make sure it's great, before moving forward. Cause yeah, this is I'm going through stuff now. It might be stressing you out. Like, Jesus Christ, I have to do all this now.
Right.
And yeah, it is, the book shines. And also, Kara, wouldn't you agree? Like you don't have to insert like a ton of personality into your site. It should be like a white wall, your tiles of work, your name, your concentration, and that's it. Like you don't need to get jazzy with like a bunch of effects and splash pages and make it difficult for anybody. recruiters just have like 2 to 3 minutes to spend on a book before they really get in there, and they might spend more time, but
I
so you want to
see how you think. That's
Yeah.
it. Like, I want to see if you're a smart problem solver, and if you're a writer, if you can write, and if you're an art director, if you can design. And like, I don't care about the fluff.
Yeah. No fluff. It's not.
Just simmer down on the
Look who's from
fluff,
Jersey
okay?
now. No, no fluff, no muff. What do I always say? What do I say? It's like all talk, all show, no go. All show, no go.
Yeah.
Like with that.
But it's easy. It's easy to go there because that's the easy part.
Yeah.
In the fun
Totally.
part.
It
So
is.
like, if you have energy to be doing all that extra stuff, make sure the energy shouldn't be spent on making your actual ads better.
Right. No, and like what you did today with your reviewers, definitely keep doing more of that. Like, as I'm sure, again, like you're coming out of college, you're not totally sure with the quality of your work or if it's quite ready, for, to be shown to recruiters to get a job. So yeah, talk to more people, get as much feedback on your book as possible. Not too much feedback on the same work, because then you'll get conflicting feedback, but yeah, definitely get them in good solid shape. And simple is best. Again, this is all extras. We don't even really have to get into it. I like her book a lot. It's because it's super simple, but she just has like these cute little like call outs, like favorite campaign, new campaign, which I think is kind of fun. I haven't seen that in books lately. But again, like simple typeface, what she is, her thumbnails, and that's it. We don't have a lot of time, but I will say this. If you're thinking about, if you haven't chose a template or whatever, I would use Squarespace. Squarespace is really easy. There are a bunch of pre-existing, layouts. You can take advantage of Avenue. I just listed them all right here. It's super easy to learn. Like, anybody can figure it out. It's not difficult. It's at first is a bit of a learning curve, but once you get in there, you can definitely figure it out. And again, just look at other good books, when you're building your site. And here are some other tips that I will, again, not go over because we don't have any more time. But but definitely read this after the event. And I think that's kind of good. I think we made the very important parts of, like, the work needs to stand out and be good. That's the main goal here. But there are definitely other things you can do to, like, round it out, make it a really cool site to check out. Okay. Oh, is that Betsy? I see her down there. Betsy, you don't know, do you guys know each other? Does Betsy and Kara know each other?
Oh yeah.
I figured, because you both worked at Leo Burnett forever.
We didn't work we didn't work together at Leo Burnett, but
yeah.
Kara actually reviewed my book when I was a junior copywriter. So
Look at that.
I told you, I've been doing it for a long time. No, that I'm not saying that you're old, Betsy.
I am.
You're not.
Well, Betsy, we've all been through the ringer. It's been a long night. We're so excited that you're here, because this is like the fun part. It's just a casual shouting questions out. And Betsy's awesome. I've known Betsy for a decent amount of time now, right, Betsy? I mean, it's been a while. I worked in Chicago at the Chicago Portfolio School for a bit, and Betsy was always great about coming to the portfolio debuts and helping out all of our students there. And since starting this school, she's been this, the same as far as, being a great resource is concerned. And she loves talking to students, and she is just the best. And she is a recruiter at Leo Burnett and ARC, which is a division of Leo Burnett. But do you want to tell them anything else about yourself, Betsy? Is that an amazing?
No, I mean, I can't, that introduction was way too kind, but I'm so excited to be here tonight, and congratulations to all of you.
Yeah, they're all, so I don't know if you know much about them. They are in college, or just they're getting close to finishing college, or they're about a year out of college. So they're starting their, journey currently, job hunt journey. So how about this? I have some questions I can ask, but I would prefer if you guys ask questions, because there's about 30 of you. So I would just go ahead and either, if you want to put it in the chat box, or if you want to just go ahead and start talking, we can do it that way, whatever.
I actually did put a couple of questions in the chat, but I could, sound them. So it's a resume related question. So the first one, I was really wondering what you guys thought about whether I should put my non-design related work experience into my resume at all? Because, I heard from different people, different opinions, and I'm sure not, could use some more insights.
Do you want me answering that, or are you guys answering?
Sorry, I was muted and I couldn't figure out how to get back to the screen. This is you. This is all you.
Okay, I didn't want to step on toes here.
Yeah.
Hi, Eve. I actually love to see like what you've done before and kind of your journey. And so one of my favorite things when I look at a portfolio is the About Me section and the resume. And it just kind of gives a full picture into who you are and what makes you tick. And sometimes that work experience is really interesting. And a lot of good stories come from that when you're trying to break the ice. So, I think as Heather mentioned earlier, I'm not saying you need like 2 pages of all your like minimal wage jobs, but if you have like some interesting jobs, yeah, please include them.
Thank you. Oh, my other question was also, we were asked in one of our classes to create that flipbook kind of thing, like a version of my portfolio. But I don't know, is it still relevant? Should we bother?
So what's
You know what I'm talking about?
No, sorry, part of my.
Oh, it's like a mock-up, but it's a sort of a 4D mock-up. Can flip pages.
Oh, like an actual physical book?
No, it lives in virtual space, but there are multitude of websites. I can't think of the one that I used, but it's like a mock-up of your portfolio, but it lives online, and you can flip virtual pages.
Oh, I don't think that's necessary. And again, just to echo, I think Heather and Kara touched on this. I feel like simplicity is key. You just want to make it super easy to navigate. As a recruiter, I only have so much time to go through books, but especially creative directors, when they're so busy and we hand off a book to them, they just need to be easily like going through each campaign without figuring out how to get through them. And you don't want to prevent them from going through and seeing your work. You want your work to shine.
Yeah, I figured. Even when I was describing it, it sounded so complicated. I'm like, I don't know why I'm even asking. Okay, well, thank you so much.
No, thank you.
I hear you. My last boss was he would not let the physical book concept die. And he insisted that we use this thing called issue, which I understand the value of it in some instances. And I do, like Kara always says, I understand the value of printing out your book, looking at it as like treating it like a story, like just, have a beginning, a middle of it, and an end. That's all important. But at the same time, like, it's just like silly, it's like, it's going to take so much time for them to press these buttons and flip. And like, you already have a site, like with a Squarespace, whatever, you don't need to duplicate it, in a more complicated version.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. Issue was one of the websites we could use for that virtual book. So thank you.
Well, let me look at this chat box. Shout out your questions, because I don't know when these came in.
Hey guys, what's going on? And so you guys were talking about fluff, and so what does that specifically look like? And then also a question for Heather, like, how do you like your bagel since you're from Jersey?
Oh, how do I like them? I like them like a proper bagel. Like, the hole should not be a hole. It should be like a belly button. It should be like a little tiny belly button. Crisp on the outside and like juicy on the inside.
Yeah.
And what is fluff? I don't know. Fluff is like, okay, I'm sure you've seen, I don't have any off the top of my head I can share with you, but a lot of like a flash page, like before I even get to the tiles, with the work, there's like a page where I like see their face, or I see some kind of like movement, or just complicated sites, a lot of like too much animation, a lot of character to them, like overly designed, I guess, is kind of the way I would think of it. Too much personality inserted into the.
Well, or some, like, there used to be this feeling that if you had the skill and you could make your own site and you could code your own site, that you should do that, and everything about it then is like designed how you would design it. And that's energy that you're spending making the site, but not the work in the site. And so I don't know if that helps explain sort of what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's not the student's fault. They think like the more, yeah, it's like showing off their, their skill set in like another way. But at the end of the day, like it isn't about the container. Like Kara was saying, like we don't need to see like a fancy, like pink, fluffy, like container. We just need to see good ideas because that's why you're getting hired. Like I want my students' portfolios to be simple. If I see any kind of like jazz, I'm just like, forget about it. It's not, we're not doing it. Like,
okay, gotcha. What if it's done like in a intuitive and tasteful manner? You think that's still too much, or like even there's like some fluff in there, but not too much?
Do you have a site? Can we pull it up and just judge it instantly on the spot, or no?
You want to?
Can we pop it up? Put it in the chat.
For real?
Yeah, why not? I'm just I'll just take a very quick look. Just
Okay.
curious.
It's
Putting you on the spot. You're a strong person here.
go ahead. So put it in the chat.
All right. It better be intuitive. Oh, because you have like a little bit of movement type of thing. It doesn't bother me. What did you use for this, by the way? Because this doesn't look like a Squarespace. Did you code this yourself, or?
That's Wix.
Yeah, I'm not like a huge Wix fanatic. It's hard to like make it work the way you want it to, sometimes.
Right. You really have to have the knowledge for it.
This looks slick. I don't hate it. That's a compliment to you. I don't hate it.
Thank you.
No, I don't think you have too much going on. I can get to the campaigns very quickly. Your insight, your idea and your execution statements are a little bit long. That would be my only criticism real quick looking at it. I don't want to spend too much time reading that sort of stuff, And I mean, Betsy, I'm stealing your thunder. You feel free to pop in here.
No, I'll just say, first of all, anything I say is totally subjective. So like, let me be clear. I'm no expert, but, to your point about like objective statements and fluff, that's actually probably one of my biggest pet peeves in books. I feel like if I can't understand what your target is and what you're trying to accomplish, and you have to explain it, then the ad's not working. And so I don't really love when people include that. It should be pretty clear in your work.
Yeah, because if the recruiter doesn't understand it right away, again, it's like, for me, I get instantly frustrated, I'm like, well, I don't even understand what's going on here, and now I'm reading all this. So yeah, just run it by your friends. Even though your friends don't know anything about advertising or design, ask them, like, do they get it? Like, that's just as simple as that. You know what I mean? Sometimes you get so close to the work, that you forget that other people haven't been spending like weeks and months working on it with you. So they don't, so it's understandable.
I also feel like sometimes people will put like their process into the book. Like they like to show everyone how they like came up with the logo. And I don't need to see the process. Again, your book is just sort of a snapshot of like, can you solve problems? Like, are you like, what's your creative thinking? We don't need to know the entire process of it. And again, when people have limited time to go through your book, that eats away from some of that time. So to me, that's like fluff that's unnecessary. I know you were talking about more like landing pages and online portfolio fluff, but that to me is also fluff. Now, on the contrary, I love a great about me section. And so if there's like other things that you do or make you tick or you're passionate about, if it's woodworking or textiles or whatever it is, I love when that's included. And I don't consider that fluff at all. I consider that super interesting. So I love seeing that in people's portfolios.
I have a question, Betsy.
Hi.
Hi, Betsy. I guess kind of what do you look like when you're hiring someone basically after they're done undergrad? Do you hire people out of their undergrad? What does that kind of look like for you versus someone who's more seasoned?
We do. We hire both typically like our interns or our junior positions can be sometimes right out of undergrad or sometimes coming from portfolio school. So it could be either one of those.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's really good. Especially like I'm finishing my senior year in undergrad. So I think for me, it's trying to figure out what jobs do I apply for? What jobs should I apply for? Would they even be interested in me coming from this point of life? Or are they looking for someone a little bit like more seasoned in the career?
Yeah, I think most agencies will have like internships or junior opportunities for people who haven't worked in advertising. You will, if you want to be creative though, you'll need that portfolio. So that's something you will either have to have like developed in undergrad or on your own, or that's why a lot of people go to portfolio school.
Right. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Going off of that question, for Betsy, would you think for someone like trying to get a role, if they can't land a position in the role that they want to do, it's to person, but would you rather have them like work on their own or go to portfolio school, or try to get into an agency to get like agency experience and have kind of the environment?
That's a great question. I feel like if you know for a fact, like I want to be a creative, then I feel like you need to do whatever it is to as quickly possible get to that. I know that's not possible for everyone. Sometimes working in a different capacity in an agency is good. It sort of gives you, a sense of how an agency runs. Maybe there's other areas within the agency that you're interested in beyond creative. You'll learn a bit more, but if you're like, hey, I've done my research, I've talked to a lot of people, I really want to be creative, then I would do whatever you can to land that first job as a creative. Sometimes people think, oh, if I start in like account management, I can just switch over. And I think maybe 20, 30 years ago that happened. It's harder and harder now to make that switch.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
I have a question for Betsy. Do you have any tips for like following up with a recruiter after the initial interview?
Yeah. Oh, that's the hard one. I feel like there's a balance of not wanting to be a stalker, but also sounding like excited and eager. And so I feel like, and maybe you guys covered this earlier, a thank you note goes a long way. And it doesn't have to be handwritten or mailed. I feel like just emailing, the recruiter, if you interviewed with them, emailing, any creative directors or any of the creatives you talk to, and just send an email highlighting, something you loved about the conversation, your enthusiasm for the job, your appreciation for their time is wonderful and professional. And it sort of leaves like a great taste in everyone's mouth. But sometimes it takes a long time to get feedback as a recruiter. There's a bunch of different candidates that are being interviewed. And so I think, oftentimes candidates will be like, hey, just checking in. Have you heard anything? And we don't have an update. And it's hard, right? Because you want to respond to everyone's emails. So I feel like, send a thank you, let them know. If you haven't heard back, feel free to maybe like check in like every 2 weeks or something, giving some space without going into like annoying range, if that makes sense.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Because I think that's like the question everybody's always asked, and it happens like it's not only relevant now, it will be relevant for the rest of your career. You can always ask the recruiter. You can always ask the person, how would you like me to follow up? How do you prefer that I follow up? And if they say a specific way, then do it. Like, because there's times when I've said, man, I'm going to do my best to have some feedback by the end of this week. It could be 2 weeks. And the candidate will follow up with me, and I'll be like, oh, I'm so glad you followed up with me, because, it's just the reminder that I needed. But Betsy's right. Like, there's a time where you can cross over. But the other piece to this is like, every time you reach out to a recruiter or to somebody at an agency, this is like your brand. This is you. This is your campaign to get a job, right? And so if you can do it in a way that if they see your name in their email, they're excited to see it and want to open your email because you write something funny, or you write, it's like, it is an opportunity to continue to represent yourself, but you do, like, my best advice is, however you do it, however often you do it, make sure you've sort of cleared it with the recruiter, that like, okay, so if I write you something every week, is that going to bother you? And, most of them will say, yeah, that's probably too much. You know what I mean? But you never know, right? But every time you send a note, every time you do anything, it's like a touch point in your campaign, right? And so you can make it as engaging as you want. There have been people that I've hired based on how they followed up, because it was smart.
Yeah, to add to that, Kara, that was like such good advice, is I feel like sometimes, in the resume and the about me, or how you present yourself at a portfolio review, that kind of carries on with the conversation with the recruiter. And like, I remember one portfolio school review, actually Heather was at CPS, and this guy just had he'd just come from Whole Foods and he had a jicama on his table. And literally for years to this day, when I email, he's now a creative director, we reference the jicama. Like it has become like a private joke between us. I've had another candidate who was like a marathon runner, and like we'll always email about his runs. And so I feel like it takes it, and it's like sort of an opportunity, as Kara said, to connect and become memorable and to brand yourself. So that was really good advice, because it's so true.
Hi, I have a question about actually like the Denver Ad School. So I know there's a portfolio school, obviously, but I had someone in my mentorships kind of let me know about like the summer program you guys had last year. Is that something that's going to be happening this summer, or is it just the full-on portfolio program?
Oh, I didn't hear. Oh, did you mean like the one-off classes that we ran back in March?
Yeah.
Creative campaign. Yeah, so we're not doing those anymore. That was kind of like in lieu of COVID, because everybody was kind of like, what are we going to do? We don't have internships. We don't have this. We don't have that. We want to stay creative. We want to help continue to build our book. And they were really successful. So we're running now a longer version of that. It's still online. It's still something you can do part-time. But you take more classes. It's not just a one-off class. It's 2 quarters of 10 weeks. And that, yes, you can start in the summer if you were to do that. It's it sounds so salesy, half the price, half the time, but like you still get a real, you get to like work with great people. Like Jon teaches, actually Jon Barco is here. I don't know. He probably is like having a cocktail, but he runs one of those classes, and I have actually sat in on the class, and they had some killer work. I was super impressed. So I think you can still get, it's still valuable if it's, something you're considering and you don't want to spend a whole 14 months doing it. But no, not one off anymore.
Had another question for Betsy and anyone else who hires. How much is important to apply for a job, just kind of fish out of water, versus kind of being like who kind of having a connection with the company or with someone? Is it more of the job market now where it's more like who is kind of how you get in, or can you still apply for jobs and there's still a lot of people who get jobs from just applying?
No, I mean, I feel like I don't have any connection to the majority of people that we hire at Leo Burnett. It's pretty rare, in fact, that someone's like referred because they know someone's dad. Every once in a while, and I'm talking just at like the junior level, I think as it gets more senior, there's people who've worked with other creatives at other agencies and they may refer them. But at a junior level, sometimes a portfolio school teacher will actually like refer someone. They'll be like, I had this amazing student in my class, and they'll pass their book along. And so we do get those internal referrals, or, someone that kind of knew each other. But for the most part, you get hired based on your book and not necessarily who you know. So it could be, going to a portfolio review and you're meeting recruiters. It could be reaching out on LinkedIn or sending an email and introducing yourself. I highly recommend asking recruiters or creative directors to do like informationals with you. If you have a book, and just say, hey, I'd love to get your feedback on my book. And sometimes that networking can help you a little bit, especially with recruiters, if you have the time, and then you kind of build that relationship, if that makes sense.
Can you say that term before, like the info? What was that term?
An informational interview. So, sometimes people ask for like an interview, like expecting a job. And when you use the term an informational interview, it's sort of like, I just want to pick your brain. I want to learn about, the industry a little bit, maybe get some feedback on my portfolio, find out like what's going on at the agency right now. And I think most recruiters, as like a courtesy, will talk to, people breaking into the industry and do what we refer to as an informational.
Got it. Thank you so much. That's a really fantastic advice.
And a lot of creatives will too. They kind of got their start doing the same thing by talking to creative directors or senior creatives, and they're happy to pay it forward. And I feel like everyone could sort of take like 10 minutes out of their day to give some feedback. And I wouldn't expect like an hour, but if you're like, hey, I've got these 3 campaigns, I'd love some feedback, or tell me about like breaking in, what do you look for? Similar to how we're having this conversation now, this would be like an informational.
And one thing that goes really far, I think, with creatives is flattery. Because like, say you're an art director and you saw this campaign, whatever, wherever, and you're like, oh my God, that if I could ever design something like that, right? Like, and I think there's this tendency to put people who are in the industry, creative director level and above, like on this pedestal, like I can never ever email that person. Oh my God, it's like, that's so scary. If you wrote to that person who did that campaign that you love and said, I love that campaign and you are my idol. And, like if they don't write you back, I'll give you $100, if they wouldn't write you back, if you didn't like flatter them in a way that doesn't like, that's authentic. Like you really like it and you really would love them to look at your book and you're starting out, like, I'm sorry, who's going to say no to that? That is just, but you really have to be legit, right? Like you can't be blowing smoke. It's got to be true. Like you've seen that work. It spoke to you and you would love to talk to that person and you would love for them to look at your portfolio. All of the people who are in this business, who are creatives, who I know, like they love it when people compliment their stuff. That's why they get up in the morning. It's why you'll get up in the morning someday. So that's another way like to get attention from people in the industry.
Thank you. That's actually really awesome advice. I think that's especially like being able to I would love in 20 years for someone to be like, oh, wow, I really love your work. It's on my walls. It's all I think about. I think that's really great advice.
Oh, yeah.
Cheap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. As long as it's real, as long as it's the truth.
Guys, could I squeeze in just one more question? I swear it'll be quick. I know we're pressed for time, but if not, totally fine. Okay.
Go for it. Yeah, you're like, I'm in the executive decision. I'm going for it.
Job hunting versus internships. What's the difference, if there are any, and any advice / insights for internships?
So I feel like however you can get your foot in the door. I mean, obviously there's a security to getting a full-time job offer versus an internship, but I feel like it also depends, you have to be a little strategic. Like, is an internship at like the top agency that you want to go to better than a full-time job at an agency that's maybe your 20th choice? And those are very personal decisions based on like what you need at that time. I feel like it's super competitive to get internships, right now, particularly because so many internship programs were canceled last summer. But, if you're not getting a lot of luck with internships at some of the bigger agencies that have very formal programs, reach out to some of the smaller shops, and they may not be getting the same amount of internship applications. They may not have these formal programs set up. Like at Leo Burnett, I love our internship program. It's amazing. Unfortunately, we only offer it during the summer, where some agencies may offer it year round, particularly smaller shops. And you may get to do more hands-on work at a smaller shop. That being said, a bigger agency like Leo Burnett, we have this like wonderful program. It's paid. There's all these like lunch and learns and other opportunities to learn about the inner workings of the agency that smaller shops may not have. So I feel like it's so competitive right now. So whatever you can get, whether it's a full-time job or an internship, it's amazing. And it's just great to get your foot in the door. And many agencies look at internships as like basically like an interview process. And if it fits at the end, they'll give you a full-time job after. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you so much.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if I was rambling. Okay.
Okay, well, guys, should we do pull an all-nighter? Should we stay like up until 1 a.m. and just keep asking Betsy questions? She's available. No, this was so fun. I hope you all had a good time. It was so nice to meet you all. Like I mentioned before, consider us a resource. So hit us up with any questions outside of this. I'll have, our chief of staff of the One Club, Lindsay, who's great. She's orchestrated all of this. She's hidden from view, but she's killer. And she organized all these rooms and all of this whole event. So yeah, she'll send you out contacts and then also the deck from the Building a Book. There she is. There's Lindsay. Thanks, Lindsay. Lindsay and I probably emailed 30 times today, just because I'm a last minute lady. But I hope you all had a good time, and yeah, we'll do it again if we can. Betsy, thank you. Kara, thank you. All right, guys, get some rest. All right, I'll see you later.
Thank you, Heather. This is wonderful.
Thanks, Heather.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone.